Welcome to Sheriff's Talk, brought to you by the Missouri Sheriff's Association. During this episode and ones that follow, we'll be talking with sheriffs from across the state regarding topics relating to county law enforcement and jails. So please stay tuned. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
The Missouri Sheriff's Association, or MSA, was established in 1945 with the goal to support the sheriffs of Missouri and their staff by offering law enforcement training, legislative support, and technical support. MSA offers memberships, agency contracts, and vendor partnerships, and each comes with their own variety of perks like full access to the learning management system and support, tax-deductible contributions, membership card, vehicle decals, sheriff and jail magazine subscriptions, advertisement opportunities, reduced training prices, access to webinars, podcasts, and training, and CCW support. Join the Missouri Sheriff's Association and proudly display your support for your local law enforcement and Missouri sheriffs. Your tax-deductible contributions will go a long way to ensure the Office of Sheriff in Missouri remains strong, independent office, answerable to those citizens that it is sworn to serve and protect. Your support is what makes the Missouri Sheriff's Association great. So visit mosheriffs.com and become a member today.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Sheriff's Talk. I'm your host, Sam Boyd. I'm here with Sheriff Mike Bonham from Osage County. How are you?
Well, good morning, Sam. First of all, thank you for the invite, and we look forward to today's topic as well.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. So tell us a little bit about Osage County.
Osage County was formatted in 1841. It's a rural county. It's the neighborhood county to Cole County, which is Jefferson City.
Okay.
Mostly a farming industry, 613 square miles, about a population just about 14,000. We have the State Technical College, which is one of the bigger employers in the county. And we have the Missouri River, the Osage River, the Gasconade River, and the Marys River that runs through it as well. So we got a lot of river, a lot of water.
Okay. So how many staff do you have work for you?
So currently I have just under 20, I think it's 22 total staff that is full-time and also part-time. With reserve officers that are commissioned, we have 9 commissioned officers, plus then we have our reserve, our part-time officers, because we consider them part-time more than we do reserve. We're right at about 20 so on officers. So
Okay. I know we were talking earlier about your jail, but how big is your jail?
Our jail is relatively small compared to many of the other jails in the area. We can do up to 36 housing. We average about 15 to 20 that are incarcerated at a time at the jail.
Okay, so you don't house for out-of-county folks or
Well, we do.
very often?
I do house for Cole, and we do for Gasconade. Gasconade doesn't have a jail. We will do for others like Miller if they have one that can't be housed there, or Mary's or whoever. We house for them, and we have done that in the past.
And no feds or anything like that?
We do not do any federal incarceration.
Okay. So we're here today to talk about the chaplaincy. Is that how you say that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Good job.
So that's a rough word to say. So what does a chaplaincy or a chaplain involve?
So a chaplain is a person of faith.
Okay.
It's not of a particular denomination, but is one of faith that has a set value of faith. Some would say religion, but I shy away from that word because it gives a bad connotation with many people. It is about helping out others and also giving hope where there is no hope. There's some things that goes along with being a chaplain, and that one of that is confidentiality. So it gives those that are incarcerated a safe person to talk to. We have many other programs that the state does and otherwise, and like drug court and so on, et cetera, which are phenomenal programs. This is just one more outreach program because there are people of faith that made mistakes in life, and they need to have some hope because a lot of times people will go that are incarcerated and they feel that there is absolutely no hope. Chaplaincy has been around for as long as the United States has been around, because the chaplains that were in the military back in the Revolutionary War, we still have chaplains that are on staff at the Senate and the House and at the federal level, and we also have chaplains here at the House and Senate as well that they open up with prayer in both sides of the legislators.
Okay. Do chaplains have a multidisciplinary kind of set, or do they just kind of have one kind of religion or faith that they are a specialist in?
So we try to we also train chaplains. We try to train them in multiple different faith backgrounds because there's some different beliefs that may not be my beliefs, but if that's your beliefs, let's make sure that we can get you the appropriate person or clergy or spiritual person to talk to, whoever that may be. So we do treat when we do training, we do multiple different levels of training for as different faiths and sets to make sure that the individuals that are before them are being served with who they believe or what they believe.
How many chaplains do you have on staff?
So I have, at one time I had 9. Right now, because people have moved, passed on, I'm at 6 chaplains, and we would welcome more because I think that it brings them multiple different backgrounds, and we have them of all different faiths. It's not one set faith values. It represents, I think, fairly well the community. But there is others that we bring in or we can reach out to that may not be on the disciplinary team or the chaplaincy team that we can go to and ask for them for help or for them to be able to counsel someone of their faith one-on-one.
What's it take to become a chaplain?
First, I think you have to be called. I don't think this is a place for the novice. Biblically speaking, I think that this is not, I call it a spear tip ministry. It is right down where people are hurting, people are in need. It's not a place that that if you're not experienced in what your set of values are, I think we're setting you up for failure. So the qualifications first is be called, and then being educated in your set of values. And then number 3, as far as we're concerned, we need you to go through our training of what is the chaplain and the law. We need them to understand how the law intersects it, how the Constitution affects them, to make sure that they stay within the parameters of what the Constitution lays out. And also our local laws, what we have in the state of Missouri, which ministers are recognized in our state RSMOs.
So you mentioned minister, preacher, priest, those kind of sets or disciplines. Do you have to be ordained or one of those, I won't say licensed or certified, but ordained to be a chaplain?
Not necessarily. It'd be to your advantage, in my humble opinion. I think that we do have some that have not had the formal training, but they've self-educated, they've self-taught, they're recognized by their faith as such. I personally believe that, the CPE, which is clerical pastoral education, is really important to have that background, to understand and have respect for all different walks of life. And I think that's what our Constitution tells us to do, is have respect. You and I may not believe in everything exactly the same, but we can also agree to disagree and depart gentlemen and friends, just understanding that, okay, he doesn't believe this or I don't believe that. And that's fine. And that's the culture and the background of our country. Not divisiveness, or not divisiveness is what I meant to say. As we see so many times that this has become a hot button issue, and it shouldn't be, because our founders didn't see it as that way either.
Do your chaplains get into with the issues of mental health, and then you have officers that have traumatic events that happen during their cycle of work and or on shift? Are they trained in counseling?
So we highly suggest, we don't make it mandatory, but we highly suggest, and we pay for them to go to CIT, Critical Incident Training, to be able to help with debriefings. I'm the old school. I went through when it was Critical Incident Stress Management, although it's still around and it's still an international foundation out there on CISM. And I have done several debriefings for officer-involved shootings, which then it becomes privileged. What's interesting is I can't serve as chaplain in my own county because I'm sheriff, and under the state law, I am to bring those that have offended or broken the law to justice. So the privilege of confidentiality that many of our chaplains enjoy, and they should, going back to a case back in the 1813, they established the confidentiality for actually priests, but then also clergymen is understood generally as well in that confidentiality. Um, it would not apply to me in that area, but I leave my county of jurisdiction, and then I can, work and function in that role as chaplain to speak to individuals. I don't bring up about my faith and, you need to believe this, but it's basically to be a good listener and to be able to understand from where the point of the the individual is coming from. Very stressful. One of the hardest things I think any officer would have to ever go through is a critical incident as such, and to understand what the relative moment of that is, but they was life preservation in most of the cases.
Okay. So you mentioned you have several chaplains. Are those full time? That's what they do, chaplain, and that's their primary duty.
So they have secular jobs for the most part. There's, I think, a couple that are full-time ministers, but far as full-time on staff, being there, Monday through Friday or even Sunday, that's not what this is. They'll come into the jail for the most part. We do have a law enforcement chaplain. Law enforcement chaplain ride with our officers, and they will, talk to them in their office, if you will, as they're riding along. And then also administrative. I don't have an administrative chaplain right now. He passed away, and we haven't found the individual that wants that or feels called to being the administrative chaplain. So we see it 3 tiers because there's suspicion either way. So if you have a law enforcement chaplain, the inmates more than likely will not talk to him because he's associated with law enforcement. And there's also a breed of suspicion. Chaplains that are talking to those that are inmates, they go, well, they'll tell all the secrets of whatever that is. And so we have found that it's very effective. And it's not that it's a hard clad rule, because I know chaplains that multidiscipline across and can do all 3. But for the most part, they individually specialize into that ministry, if you will. And they do a very great job with our people. They are law enforcement chaplains. They love it. They enjoy being out with the officers, but the officers, what's interesting is that when they first come on board, the conversation, oh, what did I do? How come I'm being stuck with the chaplain tonight? But what ends up happening over a long period is that there's a fight on who gets to ride the chaplain rides with, because they build that confidence, they build that trust with that chaplain, and realize they're not there to narc them out, or but there to be a friend, to be a confidant, to be somebody you can trust. The chaplain that we had on the before, he did weddings, he did funerals for their the families, because it's the only one that they know and they trust.
Okay. Are these individuals post certified, and do they wear the uniform just like you do there?
We do not have any at this time that are post certified. When I was doing chaplaincy, I was post certified, but I also understand there was boundaries, and I understand those boundaries fairly well, and I try not to cross those boundaries. We teach officers across the United States, chaplains across the United States, about those boundaries and how to stay within those boundaries, to not get in trouble, not get the sheriff in trouble. There is controversy, I understand, but when we look at the first amendment in the Bill of Rights, we're not supposed to set up religion, but we're not also to prohibit the free exercise thereof. So there is those times shouldn't be proselytizing, but should we make them an opportunity? Just because they're incarcerated or just because they're a law enforcement officer doesn't mean they don't have a right also to seek a faith that they believe in and agree with.
So I'm retired military, and the chaplains would be in the same uniform as I was, and they had to have the cross right here on their rank. Or when I first joined, it was up here on the collar, but now it's down here in the center. And then you look at larger police departments or sheriff's departments across the state, and you'll see that chaplain that's wearing the uniform with the cross on their collar. Yeah, it's just a kind of a comment I'd like to make, that you do see chaplains that are in uniform that have the crosses on their collar and they're wearing the same uniform as you're wearing, or whatever police department they are assigned to or work for.
Absolutely do. Fire departments, they've been doing it for years. One of the chaplains were killed at 9/11, and there's a famous picture of them carrying him out in a chair, of him being fatally injured. And again, he's one of the chaplains that are held in very high esteem, because they're not afraid to rush in. They're not afraid to do. They do earn that right or that privilege to be able to wear that. Now, ours, as far as law enforcement, we usually give them polos that identifies them with the sheriff's office, but we also make sure that they're identified as a chaplain. They do go to the same trainings that we have, not all of them, but a few of them, so they understand a little bit more about the look-see-loo into the life of a law enforcement officer or a deputy. Even the state troopers, they have their own chaplains as well.
Okay. So you mentioned that you as the sheriff, you can't be the chaplain in your own county, but you can go over to, let's say, Cole County or whatever, and help them out with someone that may be requesting a chaplain. So that leads me to think, is there a organization of chaplains where y'all get together and talk and have training or something like that?
So there's multiple different organizations across the United States. I represent one of those organizations that is interdenominational faith. We're an association of ministers, but we have chaplains literally across the country that are part of us. We do training for them, but we also do training for other organizations that is not proprietary what I believe, or they don't believe exactly what I believe, but the training is unilateral far as faith, because ministry, it takes on the same, whatever that is, denomination has similar to the same characteristics, and it also has the same of the bumpers as well. And there are several court cases that have already been decided, not only in this circuit, but at the Supreme Court level as well, as far as chaplains and understanding the bumpers. And I don't disagree with them to a certain extent. If we're going to try to eliminate it and complete, then I would disagree with that because you're violating my right to the free exercise of religion as well. So it doesn't mean that you don't have to participate. For example, if I'll use a deputy and he does not believe in any of that, we don't force them to ride with a chaplain per se, if there's a conflict in belief. But as a common human being to a human being discussion, what's wrong with that? That is the foundation of our the First Amendment, to have the free exercise of speech. And in that is not to be where we become violent or coarse in our speech or action, to be cordial and to, show mutual respect for that other individual of their belief.
When they're doing these ride-alongs, and what's their their rules of getting involved in what happens when they're with that officer on the street and something goes down? What's that chaplain's role in stopping crime, I guess you could say?
So they are a citizen, although they are technically, they're not paid. We don't pay our chaplains. Many agencies do. But they can intervene or not intervene. It is up to them at that time. We also have laws on our books that if a deputy directs someone, then that becomes under the direction of the deputy or the officer in that. I think that most of them, there's a standard question with most law enforcement officer is that, okay, I've got, a third wheel here, if it really hits the fan, is this individual going to be there for me, or will, what will they be outcome? And I think that's different for each and every one. And I think that's, to say a blanket statement that one will jump in and the other, I really don't have the answer to that, but they can make a decision based on the situation.
And I would say, the officer it sounds to me kind of like a ride along when a citizen comes and signs up to just ride along with the deputy.
Yes.
It would be the same kind of scenario. But I think that probably puts a little bit of, I don't call it stress, but just a little bit more of, I've got this other person in the car that I now have to worry about their safety.
Yes. Like I've said, as deputies have progressed and officers that we have been with and started chaplain programs, they learn that mutual respect, and they find out the individual. Usually the chaplain that wants to be a law enforcement chaplain, we have more that want to be inmate or jail chaplains than we do have law enforcement chaplains, but the ones that do are very ingrained. They really are in tune. They want to be active in the training. They want to support them. And I think that mutual respect starts to grow. It is in this industry, we don't automatically, welcome everybody right off the bat. You learn and earn that respect.
Right. Well, it sounds like a great program, and with what officers go through a lot of stuff in a time frame. We had an episode on mental health a few episodes ago, and I can't remember what the average citizen of critical incidents or traumatic incidents a citizen goes through in a year versus how many traumatic incidents a law enforcement first responder goes through in a year. But it's hundreds more, and having someone there to be able to vent to, talk to, discuss their issues with. It sounds like a great program.
Well, I will say this, that I do, if all possible, I'll do the death notifications within my county because I feel that I have an obligation to my citizens. And so my background and training, which we do a course on death notification within the chaplaincy as well, that has helped tremendously to have compassion. One of the hardest things I think of law enforcement, and I don't try to put that on my guys or gals to go do a death notification because the stress is unbelievable. If you're going to announce to a parent that their child has been killed or died, it is one of the most stressful things. And even for me, I would consider myself seasoned. It's still hard, and it's hard not to get in on that emotional roller coaster with the family. Because it's a pain that is being inflicted. It's not what I want to do, but I know that I have to because it's part of the healing process in the long term. And that it's helped me in that regard as sheriff in faith. I don't talk to them about coming to church. I don't talk to them about any verses in a Bible or Quran. I talk to them about compassion. I give them my sorrows as well, and I offer to be there for whatever they need. And sometimes that's all the chaplain is. It is not, toting a book or some cliches or some scripture. It is about being a human being, meeting a need of another human being in compassion and love.
All right. Well, anything else, Sheriff, before we end the show?
Well, I think that there's some misconceptions about chaplaincy, and I hope that some of that has been cleared up today. That it is not about proselytizing and bringing people into their church, but it's actually just about meeting the people's needs, their spiritual needs. And we do recognize, even in mental health, there is a component for many of us that the spiritual health is very important.
And for anybody out there that's listening that may want to become a chaplain, what would you say to them?
So there's multiple different organizations, and there are some that are individually faith-driven. So if you're a part of a denomination, they may have a chaplaincy program. There is others, the international chaplains. We have our chaplaincy program, the Bible Way Association out of Bonham. I don't want to put a shameless plug in, but we are there as well to help and foster, as we have across the country, many agencies, not just law enforcement, but fire, campus ministry, corporate chaplains are now a thing. Supermax, we have a couple of chaplains at Supermax. There's a variety of chaplains that disaster chaplains that are crisis orientated, which the state of Missouri has been a leader in the last 10 to 12 years of putting that together. Our patrolmen, they have chaplains as well. So it's not just this vocation, it is unilaterally across the board. The chaplains for the corporate office is great interest to me that we're starting to see private entities that are not having the same constrictions that we do, but they follow the same rules that we do in government, which I find interesting.
All right. Well, Sheriff, thanks for coming in.
Thank you, sir.
And we'll
Appreciate
see
the
you here
opportunity.
probably, 2 months at the Sheriff's Conference?
I certainly hope so.
All right. Well, out there, thanks for watching the show. Tune in next time for another episode of Sheriff's Talk. I'm your host, Sam Boyd, and I was here today with Sheriff Mike Bonham. Have a good day.
This is the host of Sheriff's Talk, Sam Boyd. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you would like to find out more about MSA or become a member, go to mosheriffs.com and click Become a Member. Hope to hear from you soon.